You look badass.
Telling you where we're at.
Yes.
Very interesting seeing like people wearing their masks and the people that don't wear their masks and like weird signs everywhere and like it's very, 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 yeah. When people walk by, I'm just like, oh.
It's so bizarre, but you do look really, really cool.
Thanks for talking with me.
Thank you so much for taking the time. We're here with Luz Elena Mendoza of the band Bamba, and this is the Canary Collective Podcast. And I'm going through all of the songs that I recorded on the album, and in order, I'm talking about the people who I worked with who inspired the song, kind of talking about like the meaning behind them. And Luz is featured on the album in several ways. Her powerful poetry that she says is on some of the tracks, and she translated my song Believe Her into a really stunningly gorgeous version in Spanish called Creer. And so I just am so honored that you're a part of the album, because we are kindred spirits in some ways, and you are a 1 in a billion kind of person on this earth. I know I always tell you that you're a gift to the earth. It's a gift you're here. So where are you, and how have you been?
I'm currently in the Northwest in Portland, and I've been good. I've been okay. It's a privilege to have such a loving community, either in Mexico or in Oregon or wherever. Like, I mean, I've been, traveling the last couple of years more than not. It just kind of happened. I wasn't expecting it. So then you just develop your community as you go, everywhere, so I'm like, I feel very grateful to have that. So psychologically, emotionally, I feel like spiritually I feel supported. So that is definitely a healthy thing. I definitely have had my ups and downs with all of this, and I was supposed to go back to Mexico, but I'm not, because I came here to work for a project for the Camas High School Choir. I wrote a whole piece while I was in Mexico this winter, and so that's not happening, but I'm doing okay. I'm like trying to stay mentally clear, because there's so many things that are so uncertain and they're out of your hands. But for someone like me that I've been so used to, just like, I'll just say this briefly, but like gone through like domestic violence and like some trauma, and also like health issues, and like where I've just the idea of being in control, of like, I've just kind of learned to accept certain things, so like kind of how we were talking about before we started this interview, where I'm like, well, I just kind of accept things to be like this way, so I can move on, because not the rest of the world is like, can understand, like either if it's about like ancestral trauma or like physical illness, like sometimes you know that you're going through these things or have gone through these things, and then there's all these things that happen from that. A lot of people don't have the emotional intelligence. It's not their fault, because not everyone goes through those things. So now that we're facing this pandemic, I think that those tools that I've learned, are like really activating like hella hard, just like, because they do. It's like subconsciously. Sorry, I'm like walking everywhere so I can avoid people. I'm outside. I need to be outside because I haven't been outside in a while. Yeah, I'm just like, this is funny. I'm trying to find the best places, and there's like everywhere, everyone's around. Yeah, I'm just trying to share that knowledge to other people, like that mental strength, that helps us to just kind of get by and like not take each other for granted and like not underestimate like the knowledge that comes from going through some hard stuff, you know, like physically, mentally, all these things. So yeah, that's like a long answer, but I've been kind of navigating all these things. So watching people's reactions, trying to be very careful how I'm going to integrate myself and what it is that I do in my voice through these times, you know, like, so.
Yeah.
How about you? I mean, you're in Southern California, and I know there's like issues and complications that that you face in order for you to like create a safe space for yourself. So
yeah, well, I really resonate with what you're talking about. Just before I really got sick and realized how much the healthcare system doesn't have the act together that I thought it did. It's like a bubble has burst, and it's like, you know, people, it's a privilege to believe that things are going to work out and that life is possible to control. But like more people have learned that way sooner than I was forced to have that bubble burst. But I have already had that bubble burst a little bit before this pandemic of like, oh, that couldn't happen to me, or like that really bad thing couldn't happen to me. Or like, yeah, the experts, the cops, the people in government, the people who are at the head of the Center for Disease Control, they're there to protect us. But no, like that bubble is burst already. So that's kind of what the song Believe Her is about, and why I chose you. Like, I really wanted to work with you because I knew that you understand that and you've always understood that. And I feel like we both land at the intersections of kind of trauma and like physical illness, in like being misunderstood, our bodies being misunderstood in those ways, even though we have very different lives. But I'm wondering if you would feel comfortable talking a little bit about like what resonated with you about the Believe Her meaning. Like, when have you felt like you were not believed for a truth that you knew inside you?
Oh, that song is so layered to me, because not only are we related on this issue of just having to deal with like our illness, like, you know, things that most people don't see, like how, for me, like how taxing certain things are for my body, and especially when people see such a strong person outside, like physically, you know, they're like, oh yeah, you're strong, oh my god, I want to do what you do, or you're so powerful, or you speak your mind, and look at you, and you're traveling, you're doing all these things, look at you have such, and I inside, like my whole childhood, like I've just dealt with just being sickly, and like, and I do believe a part of it has to do with again, we have different stories, but like I grew up in domestic violence, and a lot of that stuff really fucks with your head and your body. It stores in it's like storing in and like places in your body and your muscles and your cells, everything. And not only not the older I've been getting, obviously you're like trying to understand what's going on with your body. And in my early 20s, when I really got sick, I'm such a bright spirit by nature that like it confused people, because I would be wide-eyed and just like la, 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 and like so much drive, which is like, so it's like a visceral part of myself. But at the same time, I was like losing weight, like did not have any energy, could not move around. People did not know what was going on. I would go to this doctor in Ashland. I would finally start exploring like naturopathic medicine and like Chinese medicine. And I think it's a blessing, because if I didn't I mean, I didn't grow up knowing these natural, holistic, medicinal like paths, you know, like I grew up, both my parents are immigrants from Mexico, and they grew up in El Rancho, like small pueblitos. So like the way that we took care of each other, but not going to the doctor for like intense things, you know, like they didn't know how to like, they didn't know anything about like natural holistic medicine. So like me being sick in my early 20s really helped me kind of start chipping at like my health, you know, like understanding what I can do, because Western medicine wasn't doing anything. So I did like feet baths to like all this stuff that I had no idea like what was going on, like, but it helped and improved. But I kind of just got used to it because I was tired of talking about it, and so I wrote about it through music. Like Juniper, like an old Ila Bamba song, has a lot to do with me feeling like I was always 6 inches above my chest because my physical body was just so, I felt it so taxed. So it was just like it's my personal relationship, you know, only I know what's going on with my body. And I also believe in ancestral trauma, like what I briefly talked about when we first started talking. There's so much that I know that my family has gone through our lineages, like that is stored into our memory. I believe that. I personally believe that. I have no proof, scientific proof, but I definitely inside intuitively, and then all the research I've done, and then when I look at and the eyes, like in my father's eyes, and like, and also know what, just all these like details, like I know that all those things, doctors and medicine, science, it's like really hard to like come up with answers. And then if you don't have any answers, then it gets disqualified and it's not validated. So, which makes me cry because like, I have a privilege, you know, I'm privileged to be here and talking with you and like walking around and, you know, like, and not a lot of people have this validation. The whole system is so fucked that like people who are sick, you know, people that don't have what I have are suffering even more. And I mean, I've really had to learn to be there for myself. And so when I hear someone else, you know, going through similar things in that song, like not only are we talking about like not being seen by like the things that we go through physically and how that fucks with everything else, you know, also just like the Me Too movement and with men. And like, I also related a lot with the words that, you know, you wrote. And like, it's just, when you asked me to do that song, it's obviously a very, very specific time for all of us as women, but it just like, it just hit all areas because it's all part of it. It's all part of it. It all aggravates it, you know? And so I'm like, sorry, I'm just kind of recap of my whole life because I'm thinking about like all of this and how the whole, the trying to be there for yourself is really takes a toll, you know? It really makes you like, oh, I'm strong. I can get through this. But then you're just like, fuck, man, like I need to hug myself. I need to hug the shit out of myself. You know?
I'm doing that a lot. I'm holding my own hand. It's day 57 of me not having any human contact.
You're all, oh. Yeah. So I think that song is really powerful, and this is why music and art is communication, is really, really powerful and insightful, and it really like draws you closer to yourself and to the other people who are sharing it, you know, to like have that community of like people going through similar things. So I mean, that's what, right? Like when I go tour, like it's my community. We all gather together because we're all sharing this like common feeling, you know. We're you know, like we're all have different paths, but we're all there. I mean, sharing this emotion. And I think it's really important to, you know, even if people are like, that you're crazy, or that's too much, or whatever, you just keep doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's so important to be there for yourself. Like the song I Thought was about like women believing each other and like trying to convince doctors and courtroom judges to like believe women, but really some woman said after a show, she's like, I feel like you're singing that to yourself. Like that's actually about you believing yourself. And I was like, I literally had not thought of that, but like this is about me believing me, because after going to so many doctors, they were trying to like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but did people ever try to like tie the mind and body in such a way that they were like blaming it on your trauma? Like they were blaming your physical illness on your trauma, but then saying it to be like, and thus the only thing we'll cover is like go to a counselor and fix yourself.
Yeah, and no one's addressing the court. It's like the government, you know, they're saying they're accusing, they're blaming all these things. No more immigrants because they do X, Y, and Z, and like they're not even talking about the real issue. You know, the real issue is that people are fleeing countries because their governments are not taking care of them, or they're fleeing because of violence, domestic violence, gang violence. You know, like just there's so many issues. Like, and I think the doctors and Western medicine has not been designed because of these problems to be emotionally intelligent and address these problems. That's why no one knows what's going on. Like I went to the doctor, and this is recently. This is not. I'll tell you another story, but this is like because I have really bad sciatica too. You know, whatever. And I had a flare, and the guy straight up told me, maybe you should go see a counselor.
Yeah.
And so, and then rewind. When I first moved to Portland, I went to go see a tropical disease specialist in 2007. And I was like, what's wrong with me? I'm not digesting anything. I lost a lot of weight. Like I can't, you know, I'm super weak. And he's like, eat a steak. Maybe eat a steak. I'll never forget. And so you leave, you're vulnerable, and you're like, you're putting trust into these people who are like, you go pay, you know, like it's not compatible. Not every dentist is compatible. Not every doctor is compatible. Not every yoga instructor is compatible. Not every teacher, not every therapist is compatible. And then all these people are like going to get these things, these essential needs, but it's just so not, it's not, the formula is not right. You know, so people will leave and like end up believing what these people that we put on these pedestals are telling us, you know? So of course I'm like 25 years old, 26. And I'm like, okay, I guess I'll eat a steak, but that kind of hurts my stomach, but like, I guess I need it.
That's exactly, you know, what and like 6-year-old self said.
I'm sorry. But just, yeah, like where you, so I've had many years of just kind of getting used to it. And now I'm starting meeting certain people who are like, oh, well, we relate, totally different experiences, but you and I can be like, oh yeah, I shut myself down. So yes, it's like a song, what we do, it's like we're talking to ourselves because it's been so hard to be there for ourselves when the patriarchy or society has told us to just, so it's like hard for us to even believe what we feel every single day. Again, you have a different experience than I do, but like, you know, and so that's why you like, you bite the bullet. Like in a lot of ways, that's what society is like, bite the bullet, eat a steak. I don't know, maybe you should have therapy, and then no guidance. It's just so, you know, I get so frustrated, whenever I start getting really worked up, I get so tired after that, because this is one of those things where it's not even just about like me being sick, but it just really shines a light on the whole huge, dangerous. It's dangerous. It's a problem. It's a problem for everyone.
Yeah. Well, thank you for expending your energy to get riled up with me, because
I'm like,
it is, it's
This is
very
a lot.
therapeutic to talk with fellow canaries about this and be like, you too, me too, because we have to keep on reminding each other of the validation that comes from being like, wait a second, we have to like unlearn the gaslighting. And I think, yeah, I mean, it's ironic because so many doctors were telling me like my tailbone and my low back pain that's like sciatica-ish, and like I used to get sore throats, you know, my throat would close up, I would get bloody sores on the back of my tongue like every 2 weeks out of every month, so I couldn't sing. But ironically, what really did end up helping me was working on the emotional spiritual trauma, and like you said, ancestral trauma,
Yeah.
with like shamans who are
Yeah.
using the type of medicine that was systematically stamped out by colonization, where like I had sessions that actually worked, you know, and they were helping me like
Yeah.
solve the root cause of that. Was actually like I did a session where someone helped me heal through shamanic medicine like the ancestral trauma of my Puritan roots of like the 1800s 1600s, when women were being silenced and like and beaten for speaking out. And it was like, in this life, in this body, my throat has been like trying to protect me from speaking out by like getting physically sick. And it doesn't mean that the infections that I'm dealing with aren't real, so I'm taking antiviral herbs, you know, but it's also emotional. But like cognitive behavioral therapy isn't gonna fix,
Yeah.
you know, it's the society
but
problem.
it's part of taking, it's the right path, the right education, going, you know, instead of like a society that is, the gaslighting is so traumatic in itself that we have to like do so much work to undo that, you know. If only that helped us, and when we get to these healers, these like, then it's less labor.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah. Well, I always have people at the end of a podcast pretend for 60 seconds that we are living in a world in the year 2040 in which we have won the struggle, and let's pretend that that world is here. Like, what would that be like? Like, let's talk in the present tense. Like, I'm so glad that holistic healthcare is covered by insurance now.
Yeah, me too. I am so glad that I am the president of the United States.
I am so glad too. Oh my gosh, we got like hundreds of thousands of people to go out to the polls for you, and it was easy.
Yeah, I know, because people get it now. I am so glad that I can go back to Mexico and not have to deal with classism. I am so glad now that like I can have more of like my family come over from Mexico. I am so glad that there's like no dangers with women, you know, like at night. It's not happening anymore.
Yep.
It's great.
Yeah. And it was like this big paradigm shift where like the US was blaming immigrants, but it was really because of US foreign policy that was starving and creating violence and like inequality that was causing people to need to flee in the first place. And that like finally people got that, and we have you as our fearless leader now, and it's just I'm so glad.
Sorry, it's so hard to look at. I love this. My friend Dick Feedy is like, you should run for president, and I'm like, I don't know.
You absolutely should. I am 100% serious. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
And so it's crazy. It's crazy to think about this. I know you want to end on that note of like 2040, but it's crazy how fast all this happened in a matter of weeks. But I'm staying positive.
Yeah, I mean, there have been some pretty terrible things that have happened that seem to be like nothing will ever get better. And so I hope that as quickly as everything fell apart, I'm hoping that we can see things come back together in a new and more just way.
I think it's really important, Kaeley, to like, you know this, but like to really understand the physical body, the differences between the physical body, the ego, the spirit, the ancestral memories. Like really pay attention to all of that. You know, like I've always like just seen us as a human species reacting. I'm just listening. I'm listening and really just tending to my spirit, trying to practice like that awareness, tending to my body. Like time feels so interesting. What time even means, you know, I think, yeah, I'm really trying to be patient and learn to listen in new ways, you know, even though, I've like growing up as a first generation, you know, Mexican American, as a woman, you've just learned to do that anyway, you know. And I think this is like a new time, and I just want to encourage you and everyone else who's listening to like really just sit with that, you know. Like the ego's there, the physical body's there, all these other things. When you shut your mind and you shut your eyes, like how we can travel and navigate to like have a better, broader, larger understanding of what this all is. I know I'm getting all like existential, but it's really helping me to like know what's important and what's not important, you know. So sticking with the people that you love and nurture those relationships is super key.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who believe you. I believe you, and people who do nurture you. I'm glad that you have so many people who love you. Are you on Patreon?
I haven't really started diving into it because I'm moving this week into an apartment, and so I'm like taking those steps to really develop my Patreon account. I've never done that before, obviously, so I'm a little nervous and like, but it's really interesting opening a Patreon account during these times, because I'm like trying to look, it's a privilege, and like look forward to like, okay, well, what am I gonna do? You know, like I'm going to try to work at this and stay positive through that and believe in myself. But it's very interesting to like produce art and like try to, you know, yeah, I'm trying to keep it together and like inspire other people and encourage everyone else to like be strong. That's why I'm doing it, to help me, to believe in me, you know, and also like hopefully it's like a positive, you know, experience for other people who are going to be part of it. Because it's not just Patreon. Like for me, it's not like, oh, you have a Patreon account. It's like, hey, I have a Patreon account. This is the way that I'm processing life, how I do, especially during these times. And I hope that we can do it together. Maybe inspire other people to do Patreon, people who don't even think that they could, you know, just like the act of communicating in these different mediums is like my goal.
Yeah, well, everybody who's listening or watching, Luz is an amazingly talented artist in so many ways. Poet, speaker, public speaker, I would say, visual artist and musician. So everyone check out her music and her band La Bamba. You can buy albums that will change your life and be the soundtrack to your spiritual awakening and your dance parties and your crying fests all at once. So it is just, I mean, you are one of my most favorite music makers who has ever lived. And I'm going to embarrass you. I really do believe that you are a gift to the world, and everybody is privileged that you're on this planet right now. So we need to subscribe to you so that we sustain you. You can keep making your art. You're so prolific, and that means every month pledge $5 a month, and like you will get that back in droves. So pledge on Patreon.
You're so great. You're so great.
I'm not
Thank you, Kaeley.
I truly believe it.
Well, it's right back at you, my friend. Much love to you.
Much
love to you.
so much for taking time to be on the podcast and be on the album.
You're welcome. Te quiero. I know I'm wearing my mask. People are walking by, so I don't know.
Mask kiss.
All right. Adios.
Adios.